Hi friends, it's currently late March and over the last few months I've been attempting to force alliums to bloom inside our home. I've always wanted to force alliums inside, but I was never really able to find much information on the topic. But thankfully I did find a PDF from a large bulb supplier on how to force alliums in crates for cut flower production. And this information is what I use to go about trying to force alliums to bloom inside our home. So I filmed this entire process for you over the course of many months, and I'm going to share the steps that I used and some things that I observed and would do differently moving forward. Now, I had read that Allium carataviense was the easiest allium to force, so I used that cultivar. It's a short allium and has blooms that are about the size of a softball. I had also read that allium bulbs need a chilling period of 12 to 16 weeks in order to flower properly. So back in November, I put the bulbs in the crisper drawer of my refrigerator and let them chill for 12 weeks. And it's always important to avoid placing bulbs in the same drawer as ripening fruit, such as apples or pears, because these give off ethylene gas during the ripening process, and that gas can kill the flower inside the bulb. Now, after 12 weeks, I planted the bulbs into this decorative pot. I filled it about 3/4 of the way up with pre-moistened potting soil. I placed the bulbs pointy side up, and then I covered them with about maybe 2 inches more of pre-moistened potting soil. And I had left about 2 to 3 inches in between each bulb. And this, I think, was definitely a mistake. I thought they would need that much room because of how large allium foliage tends to get. But now that I see the display, I wished I had planted them much closer together, maybe only leaving about 1 inch in between the bulbs themselves. But nevertheless, once I had them all planted up, I watered them in and then I placed them in a nice, bright location. I also turned the pot periodically because I did notice that they were definitely reaching for the sun. And I think if you had a room in your house that really got lots of great sunshine, maybe even something like a sunroom, these bulbs would have been even happier, because I was forcing these really in the dead of winter. I was forcing them February and March, and it's kind of very dark and gray here during that time period. So even though I had them right next to a window, I could just tell by the way they were growing, blooming in the foliage, that they would have much preferred a brighter location. And that's just something that I wasn't personally able to do with them. But what was interesting to see was that about, I would say, 1/3 of them bloomed exactly 1 month after planting. So I planted these bulbs, I believe it was February 27th, but I'll put the dates on the screen. And it's March 28th right now. But they grew and bloomed very unevenly, I guess you would say. You know, some of them are blooming now. I think we have about 4 blooming. The other half, I would say, are about 2 weeks behind. And then I have 2 bulbs that came up blind, which means they only produced foliage and no blooms at all. But even these other ones back here that are further behind, when you look into the leaves themselves, you can see the presence of a flower stalk. So out of, I think I planted maybe 10 or 12, 2 did come up blind, and that could be I didn't chill them long enough, it wasn't bright enough, inconsistencies in the bulbs themselves. Now, if they were all going to be blind, they were all just going to produce leaves and no flowers, I would say definitely I didn't chill them long enough. But there were some reputable websites that just said 12 weeks chilling. So the jury's still out on that one. Let me know what your experience has been with chilling times for alliums. One thing I also failed to consider was that allium foliage naturally begins to die back as the allium itself blooms. So unlike something like a daffodil or a tulip where the foliage and the flower look nice during the blooming period, most alliums, their foliage does begin to die back and even yellow significantly while they're in bloom. That's totally natural for alliums when you're growing them outside. And for some reason, this information just kind of escaped me when it came to forcing them. I think I was so concerned about getting the chilling period right and getting the spacing right and the treatment inside our home that I forgot this very important consideration, which is the foliage dies back right as they begin to bloom. And while outside, you can just disguise that by planting perennials around them so that you can kind of hide the foliage with the foliage of growing perennials. That's kind of hard to do when you've only forced alliums in a pot. So I think what I would do moving forward if I were to try this again, and I definitely want to because I have a lot more to learn about this, is I would just plant something else around it. Maybe some forced tulips, some forced daffodils, maybe some mid-sized annuals would be nice, but something so that we're not distracted by how the leaves are just dying back naturally inside our home. But friends, that's what I've learned so far when it comes to forcing alliums. I'm really excited to hear about if you've tried to force alliums. What has your experience been? What cultivar did you use? How long did you chill the bulbs? Did you have issues with a few bulbs being blind? Any and all information you have in regards to this topic, I am really interested in learning, and I'm definitely going to try this again with all those considerations. I'm going to chill the bulbs for 16 weeks instead of 12. I'm either going to plant the bulbs much closer together or plant them into nursery pots and then transfer them into this nice decorative container closer to the time when they bloom. That way I can get more uniformity in terms of the plants themselves. And then I would also either interplant something else around them or throughout them so that it's just a nicer display and something to distract from the dying leaves. So friends, I guess you could say all in all, it was a great learning experience. I'm definitely not sitting next to an incredibly impressive display of forest alliums, but that's okay because it was a wonderful experience just to give this a try with the information that I had and see what happens. Now I can make all these necessary adjustments next time and watch what happens all over again. And hopefully as I try more, I learn more, and I become a better grower at the end of the day. So please let me know your experience with forcing alliums. I'm all ears and I'm eager to learn. But for now, I want to wish you all a wonderful day and happy gardening. Bye!